Good evening and welcome. I'm Chris Kleindienst, co-owner of Left Bank Books, the 51-year-old multiple award-winning independent bookstore here in St. Louis, Missouri. We're delighted to be in the virtual room with three other major award-winning public figures, Marlo Thomas, Phil Donahue, and Lily Tomlin. Jane Wagner is under the weather tonight, unfortunately. And we're going to be talking about longevity in marriages, the subject of Phil and Marlo's new book, What Makes a Marriage Last. We cannot be more excited. But before we hear from them, I want to thank our co-sponsors for tonight's event, HEC Media. We've been partners in author events for well over a decade, and we're so grateful for everything they do to make these events a success. We've made the transition from stage to computer screen with HEC Media, and we thank you for following us on this format. Of course, it wouldn't have been possible without Left Bank Books event coordinator Shane Mullen, who will be joining us later for the question and answer period. Shane is the master of the pivot. When we had to close our doors to foot traffic in March, Shane created one of the first virtual author events in the country in less than 72 hours. So tonight, after the conversation between our guests, there will be a chance to have your questions answered. But what we ask you to do is type them ahead of time into the comment screen that you see on your screen, and Shane will work with those. Left Bank Books relies on the community of readers, as do authors, to support our work by purchasing books. If you decide you need another copy of What Makes a Marriage Last, and you will, it makes a great gift, please purchase it from us. We are open online 24 hours a day, and we will take your calls 7 days a week. We have not reopened for browsing yet, but we are certainly happy to chat by phone or email. So we've all been cooped up for a while now, and even if you aren't cooped up with a spouse, it's nearly impossible to resist stories of how people do it. How do they manage not only to stand each other, but to love each other in a way that stands the test of time? Power couple Marlo Thomas and Phil Donahue have created a compelling and intimate collection of intriguing conversations with famous couples about their enduring marriages and how they've made them last through the challenges we all share. Marlo Thomas is an award-winning actress, author, activist, whose body of work continues to influence American entertainment and culture. She has been honored with a gazillion awards, not the least of which is the Presidential Medal of Freedom, bestowed by President Barack Obama, the highest honor a civilian can receive. Phil Donahue is a writer, producer, journalist, and media pioneer who revolutionized the talk show format and ushered in a new era of broadcast television. The Donahue Show was honored with 20 Daytime Emmy Awards. Phil has received a Lifetime Achievement Award for his contribution to television journalism, been inducted into the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame, and received a George Foster Peabody Award. Throughout her career, Lily Tomlin has received 7 Emmys, 2 Tony Awards, a Grammy, 2 Peabody Awards, and the prestigious Mark Twain Prize, to name but a few. In 2014, Tomlin started filming the Netflix comedy Grace and Frankie with Jane Fonda, and which has become the longest-running Netflix original series and my personal absolute favorite. On New Year's Eve 2013, she married her longtime partner, Jane Wagner. Jane, who is not feeling up to this tonight, unfortunately, and we wish her well and a speedy recovery, is a distinguished American playwright. She's also won numerous awards, including 2 Peabodys, 4 Emmys, a Writers Guild Award for her work in television, and the seldom given New York Drama Critics Circle Special Award for her Broadway success, The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe, starring Lily Tomlin. Left Bank Books got to work with Jane on her book tour with The Search for Signs, and it was fabulous then, and we miss her tonight. So I know we're all anxious to hear from our guests, and so I want you to please give a great virtual clap for Marlo Thomas, Phil Donahue, and Lily Tomlin. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was lovely.
Hiya, Lily.
Hiya,
Yes,
Marlo.
very nice, sweetie.
Hi, Lily.
Your wonderful book. We're going to talk about your book today, this evening.
Great that you're in. You're a part of it.
Well, the start of how did this whole thing come about? Because Jane and I were so interested, and to read that, because when we met, we had like we shared the most common aesthetic. It was impossible not to think of working together. It was just like tongue in groove or tongue in cheek or something. And so, how do you? We read that you had decided very early in your marriage that we would never work together.
Right. Well, because we're both type of personality, so we figured we'd kill each other. And so we decided, let's get the marriage set up. So it took us 40 years to feel comfortable that we could do it together. And it was easy. It was really fun. Well, we interviewed you and Jane. So you saw that we really had a good time.
Are you sure they did? Are you happy?
You kind of you uncovered some of our weak points, but that's okay. That's everything's out on the table, and we shared it, and that's good. That you have to acknowledge that before you can deal with it in the proper way. So
we know that we were very different personalities. I don't know if you and Jane are as different as we are, but we are completely different. Phil is a very laid back guy who has to like scope out the situation before he makes a move. I am running for the phone impulsively to figure out a solution now. And so that has been in our relationship all these years as a sort of a sticking point. And what we found on working on the book was that sometimes it's better to be laid back and sometimes it's better to jump for the phone. So we got a new respect for that very different way of approaching things.
Well, Jane and I are quite dissimilar, but I find that I'm high strung and very laid back. So
really,
for both of you, I'm also a little bit compulsive to get to the phone or to answer. Jane never answers the telephone. And I always have to answer the phone. If it's ringing, I have to answer it.
It just drives me crazy. It just rings and rings, And the other thing is he doesn't read his emails. I send him emails. We have our own studies in our house. And I'll send him an email that I think is great that somebody sent me that I want him to see. And through the day, I'll send him several emails. And when we meet for dinner, I'll say, wasn't that great what Lily said? He said, oh, I didn't see it. He doesn't see it. He doesn't look at the emails. So it's really, he's a little bit sort of, I don't know, in another zone.
Well, I've been very busy studying subatomic particle physics. And so these things are, unimportant.
I know. Well, I'm doomed to live in the present, so I know what's happening right now.
Well, Phil's making a joke, but Jane does read. She probably is working on subatomic particles right now. She like reads so much science and everything else, and some of that is borne out in her work. But
we went to Barbados last year together, and we're sitting on the beach, and somebody took a picture of us, and I was reading the Ronan Farrow book, and he was reading a book that said DNA. That's who we are. Completely.
I like it. Well, so it turned out very well, this working together, as demonstrated by this book. So maybe there'll be some other stuff. Maybe you'd like to tell us that Elton John story, but maybe, I don't know, that's in the book that talks about different working styles. But I think
exactly. That's a perfect example of not just a working style, but the whole example of our personality differences. As you know, we traveled all over the country to meet all these people, and we had to go to Toronto for Elton and David because Elton was doing a concert there. And I have to admit, it was the only person in the book that I was really starstruck about. Elton John, Phil had met him, Phil had interviewed him. They had been pallbearers at the Ryan White funeral. I had never met him. And all of his songs were singing in my head, Tiny Dancer and Don't Go Breaking My Heart and This Song's For You. I was like a little kid. And I was so excited. We get to the hotel and the assistant calls us and says, Elton is very tired. He's had a very rough performance schedule. He'll only have 30 minutes. 30 minutes. I almost had a heart attack because everybody we interviewed was like 3 hours. How would we get a chapter out of 30 minutes? So I immediately got a pad out and made a list of 10 rapid fire questions that I could get answers to so that we'd have something after 30 minutes. So I said to Phil, now help me with this. Do you think we should, and we didn't have questions. As you know, we didn't have questions when we came to interview you. So I'm making up these questions and I turned to Phil to get his advice and he's turned on the TV and he's watching a ball game. And I said, what are you doing? We only have 30 minutes with Elton John, of all people. He said, oh, don't worry about it. Trust me. They're not going to throw us out after 30 minutes. Well, I was really kind of angry with him. I made my list of 10 questions anyway. We get up there and we stayed 90 minutes.
Yeah, we got in.
Yeah, so he's more laid back. He doesn't panic. I immediately panic and go into action. And I mean, it was great that they gave us 90 minutes, but what if they hadn't? I mean, I was prepared with my 10 rapid fire questions.
Well, in the book you have his and her forwards. And Marlo, you tell that story about being in Kentucky on the steamboat with Phil and how you did that. And it illustrates the special communication that can be.
Phil can tell that.
Is that the clarinet?
Yeah, right. Tell the story. It's very much like how couples create codes as they go through life.
I thought this was so cool. So good.
We're at the dance floor, and
on the Mississippi Queen.
Going down the river, and there's a clarinet player in the front row of the band. I guess you wouldn't call it an orchestra.
Oh, yeah, it was a Dixieland band.
Yeah. And he is having the time of his life. And he's obviously talented. He's doing the job. And I looked over at Marlo and I said, look at this clarinet player. He is having the time. And you said...
And he was like 100 years old, too. They all were. The whole little band was. I said, I've got him. I'm watching him. He's amazing. And so that became like a code for us of when somebody's like really in bliss, really enjoying themselves. It could be, like a waitress just doing a great job, and really making everybody happy, or a grandpa on the street playing with his kid, or somebody making an impassioned speech, whatever it is. One of us will turn to the other and say, that's a real clarinet player, isn't it? So it's become a code. And I think that people who've been together a long time have these little codes that they've sort of tucked away in a cupboard somewhere that come out every now and then. And it's really it's a very comforting history, that you have with somebody.
And it's so essence something really beautiful and worthwhile commenting on.
Right, exactly. And it gives you pleasure to notice that somebody is really enjoying life, and it's inspiring to see somebody do their job well and be a part of society in a happy way.
When I introduce a person she hasn't met, old friend of mine, I'll say, oh, you're going to love this guy. He's a real clarinet player.
Right.
And she knows exactly what I mean.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, when you two got married, you moved into Phil's house. And
right.
Phil, you were a single father raising 4 sons. So what was that for both of you?
Well, there were empty pizza boxes under all the beds. And
he told me, don't think about it. I said, don't think about it. There's going to be bugs all over this house.
Marlo comes from also, I had a son who was on the CB radio all day long.
Right.
And they're doing good, buddy. Right, go get, yeah, good, buddy. And and even in the airwaves, there were fights. There were disagreements between two people on the CB radio. And one of the consequences of either insulting another person on CB radio or saying something they didn't like, the abused person would throw a
Toilet paper
up on top of the tree.
All over the trees in front of our house.
In our front yard.
Right. Toilet paper everywhere. I mean, in the middle of summer.
It would fall down, gravity would catch the roll, and of course, leave the trail of toilet paper up the tree.
So Phil had a spaz. Phil's son said to me, his oldest son, who was 16 at the time, he said to me, "We really like it when you're here because Dad has less spazzes." And I think Phil was, my God, this poor guy. He's got a job every day, 9 a.m. live on television, 5 days a week. He's got to drive in from the suburbs into Chicago for like a 45-minute hour drive at rush hour. And he's got these 4 boys. And he would rush home in the middle of the day and drive one of them to guitar practice or take them to a soccer practice or whatever it was. I mean, he was just running like a madman. It kind of made me love him because I thought, wow, what a responsible guy. Women do this all the time, but a lot of men don't have it to be so maternal, paternal, whatever you want to call it. I also was very impressed. We'd be in bed at night and he knew the footfall of every boy. He'd hear somebody going up the stairs and he'd say, "Michael, is that you?" "Yeah, Dad." A little while later, "Kevin, is that you?" "Yeah, Dad." He knew the footfall of each kid. I was really impressed. But I did, it wasn't as bad as it sounds. It was, well, you were in my house in California, so you've known me a long time. I had that really big house. I had 2 dogs and me. And all of a sudden I move in with a guy with 4 kids. So it was certainly,
a culture shock, a bit of a spousal shock or future spousal. In your closet, in your house in California, I remember your clothes were all color coordinated.
Yes. My closet.
Yeah, you took us up there.
Did I?
Maybe
Sounds like
I don't remember now.
I probably was showing off my organization.
Yeah. She didn't take anybody up to my closet.
No, that's for sure.
Oh, God.
For sure.
You interviewed 40 couples, and what's amazing is that no two of us are alike. No two of us are alike. What was your biggest takeaway with the book?
Well, you want to take that, honey?
Well, first of all, I guess I should have known this, but there's no such thing as a marriage that sails through life and then lands safely at the other end. Every couple we interviewed had faced something that was unexpected. Lori Sullenberger was home alone, and the phone rang, and a voice said, "Your husband just landed his airplane in the Hudson River, saving the lives of over 100 people." Well, who prepares for that? Now they've got media all over the front yard.
And their children were very upset about it, and they lost friends over it. The interesting thing is that when Phil says, all the challenges that the people had, life is challenges. So all the challenges that you have in life, whether it's an illness like Michael J. Fox, 3 years into their marriage with Tracy Pollan, he gets a lifetime diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. Chris Guest wakes up one day and finds out that his wife, Jamie Lee Curtis, he doesn't know this, she is a drug addict. Kira Sedgwick and Kevin Bacon lost 30 years of savings to Bernie Madoff. I mean, there's no preparing for any of these things. So what we found was that none of these couples went and looked for the escape route. I think that was the biggest difference. You had said that every one of them really wanted it.
Yeah, I thought immediately you could see the couples who, the long-lasting unions were those marriages that were participated in by people who were very serious about the relationship. They wanted the marriage to last.
And they went to marriage counseling.
That, by the way, I think that's the biggest act of love in the whole. I'm getting very an expert now on what is an act of love.
No, but
that certainly is one of them.
They did everything they could to keep it together instead of bailing out. You know, a lot of people, well, first of all, half of us get divorced in this country. So I think a lot of people get scared that they don't have what it takes to get through this big thing.
Or they're just lazy. They quit.
They could be lazy, but I think they're also scared.
Who said it's easier to?
Oh, yeah. Elsa Walsh, who's married to Bob Woodward, said, you know, I don't understand this impulse to disruption. You know, all the energy it takes to break up, why don't you put that back into your marriage and you'll have a happier life. But a lot of these things, you know, are scary and people don't know that they can do it. And so a lot of people get a divorce under like 8 years. You know, something happens, a drug addict, you lose all your money, you have a sick child, you have an illness. All the Jesse Jackson cheated on his wife and had a baby outside of the marriage.
Yeah.
You know, I said
Jackie Jackson said people ask her how many kids she had. And by the way, she refers to her husband as the Reverend. Mm-hmm. And when people ask her how many children she has, she says, I have 5. The Reverend has 6.
And I said to her, oh my God, you didn't throw him out of the house when you found out he had a baby with another woman? And she said, he belongs to me. And and then she said something really interesting, Lily. She said, this marriage is a testament to my character, which I thought was a really interesting thing to say, that she had the character to hang in there, to solve this problem, get him set right. And that child is 20 years old. It's a girl, it's a young woman, and she knows that she goes to college. So they've embraced that in their lives. I mean, that is a lot of character, which I don't think I have. I would throw him out, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, no, we'll get a consciousness group together and talk you out of it. We don't want you to lose Phil.
Thank you, Lily.
Now you talked about how we were all these couples are romantic couples, but you did in our case, and Jane's in my case, we supported each other in our careers. Just never. It's not unlike Reverend Jackson having a baby. Outside whatever happened, we supported one another in our careers, whether we were a part of the project or not. And so, how many of the couples did you find that to be true?
Well, I'll tell you something else that you and Jane have in common with many couples, including us, is you fell in love at first sight. We fell in love on the show. Billy Crystal was like 18, throwing a football on the beach and saw Janice walk by in a pink bikini, and that was it. You saw Jane that night in her little blue velvet outfit with the backpack and said, who is that woman? I got to know her. And you fell in love. I mean, it happens. A lot of people, it just happens right from the start.
Love at first sight is a real thing. We were surprised at the number of couples who acknowledged that was their situation. Malcolm Gladwell has the book Blink, and he makes the point that first glimpse is often profoundly important for lots of people. Right. Not every case, but in many, surprisingly large number of cases. A
lot of the people in our book had that. And in terms of working together, well, I think Chip and Joanna Gaines have a business together. Not all of them supported the work in terms of, as you and Jane have, with helping each other make your work better. Both of you have done that for each other. But a lot of them have been so supportive of the work that the other person who's got the career can freely do their work without feeling that it's an inconvenience to the other. And that's a very big thing. I mean, that's one of the things that made me trust Phil, because I was offered to do the national company of 6 Degrees of Separation, and it was an 8-month tour. And he was doing the Donahue show, and I really wanted to do it. It's a great part. Jerry Zaks, the original director, was going to be directing it. John Guare, the writer, of course, out of Lincoln Center. It was a great opportunity. And my dad had died the year before, and I'd been kind of blue. And anyway, but I didn't want to do it if it was going to hurt our marriage. And I went to Phil, and I said, do you think that we could do this? I mean, I won't do this if you think it's going to hurt us. And he said to me, if I needed this as much as you do, I'd do it. Mm-hmm. And it was going to really inconvenience him. Traveling, back and forth on the weekends, it was a big inconvenience. It was very difficult on our marriage. I don't even know if I had to do it again, I would do that. But a lot of friends that I've had, women friends who have left marriages, have been over that issue, that a husband doesn't want their wife to take an opportunity, not just in show business, but in business or any kind of business, where it would be an inconvenience to his life. Right. And they didn't know at the time that was the reason the husband advised them against it. But later they realized that it was a selfish act. It wasn't for really giving good advice to the person for what would be good for them. And I think that is a great act of love. It's what we do as parents. As a parent, you want your child to have every possibility. You want them to have every dream come true. Get them to the best schools, get whatever they need to give them a boost in life. But I don't think most people do that for their spouse. And I think that kind of maternal, paternal love we give to children, we need to take some of that fiber and give it to each other. And Phil did that on that instance, and it really bonded me to him even closer. I thought, it's one thing to trust somebody physically, but if you can trust them with your head and know that when you ask them something, they're going to be coming from it for what you need, not for what will be convenient for them.
Well, not to had the exchange here, but Phil is a conscious man. He has been that's what attracted you in the first place. And
right.
A lot of men would not do that for their partner, for a woman, because it's just not the way. Especially people who have been together for 20 or 30 years by now, because times they would have been indoctrinated in the culture. Okay, if only your show was on, Phil, I could be a guest and speak.
I know.
Well, a woman stood up in my audience one day and said, she started talking about molars and bicuspids and, front teeth and all. I said, you must be married to a dentist. And she said, I am a dentist. And I mean, that's just the beginning of my education. I've had, I tell you, it's been, I'm a lucky duck. I mean, I have, for a Catholic who used to think of women as an impure thought, I have come to realize that they're human too, and they even have
brains.
Brains, right, and talent, often more than I have.
I was just thinking, you really got Jane and me. You talked about bickering, and Jane and I even bickered in the interview.
I know, it was great.
Well, who else talked about the way they fight? Although I was totally unconscious we were bickering.
Yeah, everybody talked about the way they fought. Even President Carter and Rosalind talked about it. They also bickered during the interview, as you and Jane did. At one point, he said something, and she corrected him. And she said to him, well, may I tell it? And he said, well, all right, but just don't go on too long about it. And we thought that was so funny. We really thought that was darling. I mean, they've been married 73 years and
I
they're
know.
still,
Oh,
I thought
God.
that was good. It was just great.
And I said to her, you're a feminist. And I felt after I said that, why would that be such a surprise?
Well, she's old.
Well, not only that, she's from the Deep South.
Right.
And she was a modern girl.
She's very strong.
By the way, there are pictures in the front of the book.
It's so cute.
Do you have it? Do you have the book?
Yes, I do. Hold on. Shall I get it?
Oh, no.
Let her go. She.
Honey.
Well, I just don't want to. Oh, well, thank you.
He loves the picture of the Carters. Jimmy's in that. No. 2 pages away. At the beginning of the story. I wish you would.
Yeah. Well, but it's worth it. You see the two of them? He's got his white naval uniform.
This is not interesting.
Oh, I know.
Dear.
Oh, it's okay. It's just we're with friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is.
That's so great. Her mother said she fell in love with his uniform. They're a fabulous couple.
Well, uniforms are pretty good.
They have a rule of they don't go to bed if they're on an argument. But I love what Ben Falcone, who's married to Melissa McCarthy, said. He said, I intentionally go to bed when I'm mad because I know it'll be over in the morning. And I thought that's a great piece of advice, because who the hell wants to stay up all night until somebody admits they're wrong? And that's really what you're doing, especially after you've had 2 glasses of wine. It's not going to end well.
Yeah, wait till that's a good idea too. I'm going to adopt that. Just
I know. It's great. A lot of people talked about how they fought and how they came back from a fight. That's the really big thing. I mean, everybody fights, but how do you come back? Are you a pouter? Do you hold a grudge? And I think as the years go by, you really tell Lily what James Carville said.
Oh God, that's a good one.
Carville said, when you find yourself going around and around on a very unimportant issue.
One of those things we said, well, you said you would. No, you didn't. You should. You take it. No, you didn't take it. All that.
As soon as you can say, oh, let's just kick this can down the road. So one day we were having our round and round
argument.
Yeah. And I said it, didn't I? And I said, oh, let's just kick this can down the road. And of course, we both started laughing.
But it's great.
It's a great idea. Really.
It's another great code. It's like the clarinet player. You know what I mean? It's just, and he said behind every marriage is an alley of 1,000,000 cans that have been kicked down the road.
Oh, good. See, there's that kind of good information and advice is just filled. This book is filled with it. Now, I'm never going to find the couple I'm pursuing.
I'll tell you another good one. Holly Robinson Peete, who's married. She's an actress. She's married to Rodney Peete, who is a NFL quarterback. Well, he's retired now. And they have a rule that if one of them wants a 20-second hug, they have to give it. So you could be just so mad at your partner. But if you say, I need a 20-second hug, you have to do it. And she said, sometimes you don't want it. You don't want to get anywhere near him. You want to kill him, but you got to do it. And she said, the minute you do the hug and you feel his body against yours, it kind of like lets loose a little bit, just that little 20-second hug. I thought that was a really great tip.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a list of, I'm going to take the advice in this book and then I'll just make another book. And
I once had Billy Graham on my show, and I said to him, Reverend Graham, have you ever thought about divorce? He said, never. Murder, yes. So That lifted the guilt
Right.
veil off of a lot of shoulders.
What's that?
That's
Oh, you
President
finally found the pictures. I told you drove her crazy with the picture
Oh,
of the card.
look at that. That's.
I know,
I mean,
but she spent the whole time looking for
I'm
it.
sorry. Yeah.
Well, he was
Yeah.
listening to every word you said, though. Believe me, every single word. You look so cute and so young and so.
Oh, I know. He was 21 and she was 19. So dear.
Mother. So
They made out in a, what do you call that back seat in a car?
A rumble seat.
A rumble seat. They made out in a rumble seat. A rumble seat. I've never even seen one. It's just amazing.
well, challenges are an integral part of every marriage, and you feature many challenges in the book. Which ones stand out to you? Now, we may have covered that as far as I can.
Well, we covered a little bit, but Ted Danson said something I think you'll find interesting. He's been married 3 times. He's married now to Mary Steenburgen, who is just divine, and they have a terrific marriage. And they're into like 30 years of their marriage now. So I said to him, wow, I said, I was scared to get married at all. And you've been married 3 times. Where did you get the optimism to get married a 3rd time? And why did you think it would work the 3rd time? And he said, well, I stopped lying, which really, it really took us aback. We both looked at each other and I said, well, what did you lie about? He said, everything. I lied about, I was unfaithful, but that's just a bit of it. He said, I lied about who I was. I wanted to be better than I was. I wanted to give off the impression that I was better. I wanted to be this guy who came in on a white horse. And I wasn't any of those things, but I thought I wouldn't be lovable if I wasn't. And so I had to get to a place where I could be vulnerable enough to just be who I am. And he said, and Mary, when I started doing the dance I usually do about, who I am, I could see her looking at me like thinking, what is with this guy? And he said, I just dropped it. And now, I'm more vulnerable and I'm able to be who I am. It's really interesting. Nobody's ever said that, but it's really true.
Yeah.
Chris Rock said it. Remember in that special? He said, when you go out with somebody, you're not really going out with each other. It's your representatives who are going out with each other. Your representative is showing how great you are, and her representative is showing how great she is. So it takes a while for the representatives to go at home and for you to show up. And that's really what Ted Danson was saying.
Well, you've asked almost every couple about jealousy, but for
That.
you had some of the best jealousy, stories in the book.
Well, you should tell Lily your jealousy story.
Well, I was very jealous, and I guess I still am. But
no, you're not so much.
Marlo made a movie with Chris Christopherson, and it included a love scene that I'm sitting there watching. It seemed like the love scene lasted about 3.5 years. I thought this thing would never end.
You were watching. Did you watch it filmed? No, you saw it in the finished product.
He went to at the private screening. He came in. We'd been married about 3 years when I did it. And, I was married, but I wasn't dead. He was so sexy, Chris Christopherson. And Phil could see that there was something, chemically happening on the screen, but it better happen on the screen or you don't have a good movie. But that was all. It's only for those moments when you're doing that. But it was hard for him. He said something to me even before we were married, when we started dating, and he said, I have to talk to you about something that I'm concerned about.
You're an actress?
Yeah. You want to tell it?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I said, you're an actress.
Yes.
How do I know when you're telling the truth? And that really bothered me. an actress can create all kinds of
illusions.
Yeah, and not all of them are. Many of them are just that, illusions. So I'm not. I look back on that now, and I mean,
and I thought it was so sweet because I grew up in Hollywood. So, I mean, everybody I knew was an actor or a writer or director. There was a lot of make-believe, but I never doubted that who I was talking to, was acting to me. But, he was from Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, and then Chicago. And he went out with journalists and other kinds of business women. And I was the first actress. And, he would look at me like, suspiciously. And even when I would cry or something, he'd kind of look like, I'd manufactured my tears. It took a while. I mean, we were married, obviously, but by the time we were married, he figured he knew who I was. But I was very touched that was something he was able to express, that this bothers me. Well, I know when you're real.
Tell the story about Mark Consuelo.
Oh, no, it's a jealousy story. I like your story.
That's what we were talking about.
Well, but I'm sure Lily has other questions.
Okay, Lily.
All right.
Yeah, there goes my question.
So,
are the questions up?
Yes, the questions are up, and we were all just enthralled by this conversation, and then realized that we were going to run out of time for our audience questions. So here I am. This has just been a fantastic conversation. I am going to forego my own question because there are, per usual with the St. Louis audience, some really great questions sitting in the queue. And so I am going to let Shane, our event coordinator, go ahead and pitch you some of those questions.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. So the first question is going to be from Valerie. Valerie asks, it seems like you, this is for Lily, it seems like you and Jane have had this very long-running, smooth, and successful personal and professional partnership. But was there ever a difficult time, and how did you get through it?
Oh my gosh, there's sure there were plenty of difficult times, but they seem sort of ephemeral now. We've forgotten about them. We struggled. We've had failures, and we just say, we'll just get started on the next project. I don't know what kind of tricks we have. If I could, I would have written that book I'm going to take out of their book. Words of wisdom. I just know, I mean, I love Jane so much. I'm thinking, what can make this better? And I'm sure I don't know if she feels as I feel, but I think she feels much the same way. Just has to make something better of it. It's like I might make her a special kind of smoothie or something, and think that that's going to augment some moment to make the moment better. So it's just really wanting. It's what Phil and Marlo said earlier. You just you want the relationship to succeed, to last, to be something, and you're committed to it. It's just such total commitment. There's nothing else to say about it.
And I will say that there were a lot of well wishes, wishing Jane a speedy recovery. So
tell her she'll be very, very happy. And the fact that she has been at Chris's bookstore like the other year when she was doing a book tour for Search. This would have been fun.
Yeah.
This kind of conversation is good. You get much more into stuff. And Phil and Marlo are just great interviewees anyway.
Thank you.
So Chris is different Chris, not Chris, the co-owner of Left Bank, is asking for Lily, how did it feel to not be public as a couple in a committed relationship for such a long time?
Well, we were kind of obstinate and flip-offable. Because we could flip off the other people because we didn't want to get married. If they didn't want us to be married, we didn't want to be married. And I used to always say, there's no excuse for a square gay person. And I thought we were square, that used to say, I thought gay people could think of something better than marriage. With that miserably. They haven't come up with a darn thing. And then when the opportunity became really a rich possible auger plate, we jumped in.
The
But we
next-
thought we were married already. I mean, we've been together it'll be 50 years in March.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's wonderful.
We were just behind us.
You're 10 years more than us, and we wrote the book. You should be writing the book.
Oh, I don't know if Miss Wagner, I could persuade her to get on that book. Like
Wow.
that. I don't know.
So this next question is for everyone. So from Silver is asking, when have you done something to your partner that may have hurt them? What do you do personally to let them know that you are sorry when saying sorry feels inadequate?
Well, when you've hurt somebody, we've learned that the best thing to say is, I'm sorry that I hurt you, not I'm sorry if I hurt you. You know you hurt them. So you don't say if I hurt you. That's really a baloney thing to say. And many of our people that we interviewed talked about that, is how do you say you're sorry and mean it and not push it on the other person? Well, you were being touchy, or you were in a bad mood. I know that was not a good day for you. None of that. And Peter Herman, who's married to Mariska Hargitay, said, sometimes I say something hurtful because I really want to be, I'm mad and I want to say something hurtful. And I own up to that. I say, I'm sorry I did that. I did that to be hurtful, and I'm sorry I did it. That's really big to be able to do that.
Very, very tiny signs of affection consistently can really help. The song "Little Things Mean a Lot" has I think, a fabulous lyric. One of the lines in the song's lyric is, "Touch my hair as you pass my chair." Well, now.
He's a romantic, and thank God for that.
Yeah, you love that.
I do. Of course I do. But I think, but that helps too when you're sorry. But I think being really sorry and not saying if I hurt you, that's my thing. I don't know. What do you think, Lily?
I think that's a bogus trip. If you're hurt, it's like that guy on the floor of the Congress, trying to skin out of his situation with AOC. He didn't say if or anything, but it's all those guys, when they go to apologize, they always say, I apologize if I've hurt anybody.
Right, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
It's just a completely BS way of being sorry.
Yeah. Right.
It's a very easy way to take it back. Like, oh, I didn't hurt anyone, so I'm not sorry anymore.
Right.
Oh, this book. I'm telling you, I'm thinking this book now. We should. This book should be at the UN.
It's definitely for the Cold War.
I'm just so fed up with so many people in positions of power who cannot do the right thing.
I know.
And it just starts on 2 people, 3 people.
We're living in a lot of wrong thing times.
Yeah.
It's up to all of us to raise our hand and be counted for what we believe in, and convince others to stand up for what they believe in. Because if we all stand up, the country stopped the Vietnam War. We can stop the bad stuff if we say so. But people get afraid and they don't. But I must say, with this entire anti-racist action of the going on in different places, to see so many people of all colors and all ages marching to protest any kind of brutality toward one group or the other. I think that's wonderful, but we haven't seen that in a long time. I don't know if you saw Obama's eulogy today, but
I
John
saw a
Lewis.
bit of it.
Oh yeah, it is quite wonderful. To really try to bring the country.
And you hear that Trump tried to. Well, we shouldn't politicize on Chris's bookstore. I don't want
We're pretty political.
Oh, good. Well, we in a bookstore, I'm sure after 40, was it 40 years or 35 years?
51.
Oh, there you have it. So, now, and Trump tried to book time. He tried to call an emergency, some kind of political statement that he was going to make, some important address at the time that Obama would be delivering the eulogy. And nobody, not even Fox. Perhaps I'm gloating too much.
Oh, wow.
That's one person I cannot say.
That's standing up. That's standing up. Next question.
I'll combine two. So Vicky asks for Marlo and Phil, who do you wish you could have interviewed? And then there's another question. How did you pick the couples who were in the book? So
we wanted to interview the Obamas, and I spoke with Mrs. Obama. She's just a fabulous person. She's been to St. Jude. Anybody who's been to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is fabulous in my book. And many, many first ladies, Hillary Clinton, Barbara Bush, Nancy Reagan, many first ladies came to St. Jude, and Michelle Obama came, and she was adorable with the children. She loves kids. So she was terrific. And I spoke with her, and she said, we really can't do it. Everybody who's ever worked for us is writing a book. And if I do an interview for you, I have to do an interview for every one of them. So she didn't do it. And we also wanted to interview Laura and George Bush. I wanted those two opposite parts of the aisle. So I'm very fascinated by that kind of scrutiny that they live under, and what it's like for the wife to have to take a back seat, and what it's like to live with everybody staring at you and noticing everything you do. I mean, Hillary Clinton is kind of hilarious when she talks about her hairstyles, how, she is this brilliant woman. I mean, Secretary of State, Senator and everything. Still people want to talk about which way her hair is parted. So that's who we really wanted to interview that we didn't get to interview. And what was the other question?
Well, I wanted to interview the Pope.
Yeah,
but
he hasn't been married long enough.
I wasn't able to get through.
The second part of the question was, how did you pick the couples who were in the book?
Well,
in our
we wanted to pick people who've been married a long time. We wanted to pick people of different professions. The President of the United States, comedians, writers, an athlete like John McEnroe, Al Roker and George Stephanopoulos, who are news people, doctors, Sanjay Gupta, Dr. Oz, Judge Judy and her husband. We tried to get people of every profession that we could think of. We also wanted people of many religions, Christians and Jews and Buddhists and Muslims and Baptists. And we wanted same-sex and opposite-sex marriage. We wanted to have as many kinds of people in different professions and see if any of that made a difference. Did anybody's marriage show us something that the other marriage didn't, for whatever reason, religion or whatever? And it turned out that
there really isn't. There really is. Don't scare me like that.
there really isn't a difference. Everybody wants the same thing. No matter who you are, or what color you are, what religion is, same sex, opposite sex, whatever it is. Everybody wants a safe place. Everybody wants somebody to have fun with, to be their best friend, to have sex with your best friend, as Rob Reiner said. A good marriage is having sex with your best friend. Whatever it is, whatever is your thing, working together, supporting each other, and knowing they've got your back, knowing you can trust them with your head, all of that, I mean, there is that when you're looking for the secret sauce is the wanting it to last, doing everything you can to make it last, not looking for the exit sign when things get tough, and inhaling life together and enjoying it together. I mean, certainly, I've known Lily and Jane long enough to know that that's what they have. That's what we have. And that's what the people who've lasted, they have that. There's a real joy in each other and knowing that you can trust this one. He'll be there for me and I'll be there for him. Judith Viorst, who I love. You love her too, don't you, Lily? That funny writer. Yeah, she's just wonderful. Oh, I'm sure you all know. You're a bookstore, so you all know her. But she said a great thing. She said, no matter how long you're married and no matter how hard you try, he is never going to be you and you are never going to be him. So accept that as a given and learn to accommodate each other. Whatever. He's this guy who's laid back. You're this impulsive person who goes for the phone. You are who you are. That's who you've married. That's who you are. And enjoy that. And maybe learn a little something from each other. I just, that really impressed me. He'll never be me and I'll never be him. Because people get married and they think, well, I'll break him of that habit and I'll get her to do this. It isn't going to happen. John McEnroe's wife said a funny thing. She said, I'm so sick of my women friends telling me that the guy they're with has got real potential. She said, forget about potential, right? Forget about potential. Don't marry potential. It's not going to grow. It's not going to become something else. Marry the person, the man or the woman that has got what you need and what you want. Don't marry potential. She said, that should be the name of your book. Do not marry potential. Isn't that great, Lily? It's so great.
All right, so I'm going to try to sneak in a couple more questions.
Okay.
The next one is from Joyce, who asks, thank you for all you do for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Tell us about your work with the Thanks and Giving campaign that you created for St. Jude.
Oh, thank you, Joyce. By the way, I know Joyce. Hello, Joyce. But the Thanks and Giving campaign that we created was to give thanks to the healthy kids in your life and give to those who are not. And that is a very important point, because we all need to be grateful for the healthy kids in our lives, for the healthy people in our lives. We're all just one phone call away from some very bad news. And I think the best investment you can make is in research. And that's why I am so committed to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, because we are working on what nobody knows. We're making it up every day. We're creating new ways to save children's lives every day. We get children from all the wonderful hospitals in the country, all the finest hospitals in New York, Boston, Seattle, Texas, Los Angeles, where the other hospitals said, we don't know what to do. And they come to us and we custom create a program just for that child. And if we make that child well, with this customized program, that represents thousands of children all over the world who are now going to be saved from that incurable disease that was before incurable. I mean, it's very dangerous to ever ask me a question about St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, because it's really my passion, because it's such a real thing. I mean, we go there a lot. And when you go there and see a mom and a dad and a kid who've just arrived and their eyes are this big with fear, and then 6-7 months later we come back and the parents are relaxed and the child is doing better, and it's just, I mean, I've got some Emmys and a Peabody and all the things that were said in my introduction, but none of them holds a candle to watching a mom and dad take a kid by the hand and go home. I mean, my God, what an accomplishment. And we're part of that. My family, and Joyce is, and her family, so many people, and all over this country. I mean, we we make 78% of our funds come from the public because we're not for profit and nobody pays. So an average hospital, a for-profit hospital, only has to take about 8% of their budget from the public. We have to get 78%. So, and I think the reason we're able to do it is that no matter where I go, and I'm sure if right now we were in a bookstore, in your bookstore, and I would look out at your group of people and I would say, has anybody here been touched by St. Jude Children's Research Hospital? And hands would go up. They have a niece, they have a neighbor, their boss's kid, there's somebody down the street, a kid at school. Always is somebody in the room has been personally touched by St. Jude. And that is the word of mouth that helps us raise all the funds we have to raise and never, ever have to have a family pay for anything. Not housing or food or treatment or travel. We pay for it all. That was my father's promise. I'm sorry I went on too long, but that is my passion. As much as he's my passion, St. Jude is my passion.
I don't feel like you should have to apologize for your passion. Like, I think that's.
No, I know, but I took up a lot of time, but it's like put another nickel in the Nickelodeon. That's me. You put a nickel in me and ask me about St. Jude. I could just go on for days. I love it so.
All right. So the last question that I want to ask is from Ashley. So Ashley is asking, who modeled a good marriage or relationship to you? And I think that maybe possibly from the early years of your relationship. And this is for all of you.
Models a good relationship, a good marriage relationship. Well,
Wow, that's good.
You go, Lily. I've been talking too much.
I can't point so much to my family. I'm sorry to say. I'm trying to think of some relative that I have that had a great marriage. I'm not sure that they existed. They all seem to have a bit of trouble. There's a lot of just old role, they were playing old cultural role models, and men mostly drank a good deal, and the women were left adrift and took care of the children. And but like my own parents, my father was alcoholic, but he was a darling, funny guy, and my mother was very witty, and she outlived my father by decades because he died at 56. But my father, and I look just like my father. My brother looks just like my father. My father was very dominant, and my mother just was such an upbeat, happy, wonderful person that maybe as individuals, I still adored them and loved them and got a big kick out of them. And I had compassion for my father. So I can't, but they did not have a really great marriage. I wouldn't think, but I'm not in that marriage. I don't know. Maybe they did. My mom, they were married for quite a few years.
Well,
is there like a St. Jude's for kids who didn't have a good marriage model?
What did you say, Lily?
I said, is there a St. Jude's for kids who didn't have a good marriage model after that sad story?
That's another thing you could be doing. Right after you write your book on marriage, you could open that up. You've got a lot of work to do, Lily.
No, I don't have any work. My father and mother were like very funny. And Southerners, they have a shortcut. They have like old sayings. They'll say like, if someone in the family, you're having dinner around the table, and they'll say, "Oh, you're just like old Albert," like, "Oh, where's that hat?" Just like Albert. They have little. Well, you must know that from coming from Ohio.
Yeah,
definitely. That's my. I went on a Mother's Day show with my mom at the Kennedy Center, near the Kennedy Center at the time I was playing there, and every other mother was like a showbiz mother. I mean, unbelievable. They'd be singing with their kid, and my mother's talking real sincere, and she'd be very witty now and then, but she all of a sudden she said, well, she left home at 16 and nearly broke my heart. I said, Mama, it came out of nowhere, and she had big tears in her eyes, and
oh wow,
I came home for supper, didn't I?
Tell what your mother did the night you opened on Broadway.
Oh,
When
she stood in the aisle and she thanked everyone for coming. Thank you for coming to Lily's show. Thank you. Shook their hand. Thank you for coming to Lily's show. Never said I'm her mother or anything. And just got up and identified the show. Yeah, my
That's
mother was
great.
very sweet, very funny.
That's so great. That's
She
great.
never she would have you laughing uproariously, but never said a sarcastic, not even sarcasm. She never said anything ridiculing in her humor, and yet she was constantly, constantly funny.
That's great. Well, that's what she gave you. Look at that. And
Yeah.
your dad, didn't your dad used to take you to the bar and put you up on the
bar? I used to book his bets. And then I'd come back. I'd wait till the race was over before I came back. I'd never have to show him the ticket. And he the next race, you know, I mean, he never even worked in a factory. He made like $100 a week, so it's not a big bankroll. But very funny.
Well, great.
Yes, I want to thank you all so much. It has really been a pleasure spending time with you. You were all such a gigantic part of my upbringing. You have influenced me in so many ways, so many countless ways. So thank you so much. I'll pass this off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please give our love to Jane. I'm so sorry she's not here tonight.
I will. She'll be so happy to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for doing this with us. It's really been a delight, and I want to remind people to help get this book on the New York Times bestseller list. As I said, I'm backwards here. Great gift, and especially now. I mean, this conversation was really wonderful. I'm sure people out there are loving it, and we'll be talking about it. So, thanks to all of you. Be safe, be well, and
thank you. Thanks for having
take
us.
good care. It's been an
Thank you.
honor.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Phil. Bye, Marlo.
Bye, sweetheart.
Bye.
Bye-bye.